Well, hello and a very warm welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching a brand new edition of World Panorama with me, Frank Pereira. Before we get you all the latest from the world of everything that's happening, in fact, around the world, let's bring you up to date with the latest headlines. Islamist militants in Iraq seize 2 new towns and threaten to move on to Baghdad. Iraqi army struggles to contain insurgency in the north of the country. UN says hundreds killed as the Sunni-led Islamists advance to the capital. After a long break, CIA resumes its controversial drone program in Pakistan. At least 18 killed in 2 drone strikes in North Waziristan. Concerns raised among critics whether Islamabad has given a go-ahead for fresh strikes. The 2014 FIFA World Cup gets underway with a colourful opening ceremony. Jennifer Lopez and rapper Pitbull performed the official World Cup song We Are One. Over 3 billion viewers tune in to watch the ceremony. An exhibit based on the Batman film franchise is set to open in California later this month. Exhibit to feature props, costumes, cars and memorabilia from Batman movies. Exhibition will be launched on June 26 to coincide with the 75th anniversary of the comic book hero's debut. First up in the program, Iraq crumbles as Islamist militants take over more cities as part of a strategic attack. And amid the worsening situation, US President Barack Obama says that his government is looking at various options, including a military action to tackle the crisis. Here's more.
Iraq is in shambles. Insurgent fighters are pushing south to take Baghdad, the country's capital. A group from the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant on Thursday staged a parade of American patrol cars seized from collapsing Iraqi army. The masked ISIL fighters waved black flags on the Islamic State, flashing a V sign with some shouting towards Baghdad. US President Barack Obama is looking at all options to confront the insurgency in Iraq. He is even considering a military action, raising the possibility of the first American military intervention in Iraq since the end of the US-led war. Meanwhile, the Iraqi foreign minister said the country's army is capable of defeating the Sunni insurgents.
I think it's fair to say that in our consultations with the Iraqis, there will be some short-term, immediate things that need to be done militarily, and our national security team is looking at all the options.
No, the Iraqi army is doing to reorganize itself and to push back on the Al-Qaeda and the ISIL. And I think since last evening until today, they have been making progress, preventing their forces to reach any sensitive installations north of Baghdad. They have been pushed back, and we are confident, really.
The United Nations Security Council met on Thursday to discuss the extremist violence in Iraq. According to the UN, there was no immediate danger of violence spreading to Baghdad.
I think the situation is that there is a terrorist activity in the Middle East, and it's coming from different directions. Maybe some of those terrorists who are fighting now in Iraq have come from Syria, but mostly they are moving to the region from other directions, and so it's kind of a mixed bag thing. As to the sectarian problem, yes, it was discussed at length, and that's why we emphasized in our remarks, which I delivered on behalf
Even as the fight continues, Turkey is negotiating the release of 80 of its citizens held hostage by the militants. They have also confirmed that they are safe. As a warlike situation builds up in Iraq, refugee camps are in full swing to accommodate thousands of people fleeing from various cities. Significantly, a video posted on a social media website showed rebels declaring an end to the Iraq-Syria border. The video, which was uploaded on Tuesday, shows what is said to be rebels from Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant on the border between Iraq and Syria. A male voice speaking in Arabic is saying, "Breaking the borders, Iraq forever." Iraq was created under the British mandate after the 1916 Sykes-Picot Agreement divided control of much of the Middle East between France and Britain.
And joining me on the show to talk about the Iraqi crisis today is, of course, the former Secretary of the Ministry of External Affairs, Mr. Rajiv Sikri. Mr. Sikri, welcome to the show and thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Let me just quote a former diplomat, of course, Iraqi diplomat, who has come out and said that Iraq is going to self-implode soon and this is the beginning of the end, is what a very senior diplomat, a former diplomat, has come out and said. Do you agree with that?
I think it is a very serious crisis, one that had been anticipated when in 2003 the American forces went into Iraq. Because Iraq, as we know, is a diverse country with Shias, Sunnis and Kurds.
Kurds also, yes.
And that had been held together by the strongman Saddam Hussein. Now once Saddam Hussein was removed, that force which was holding Iraq together disappeared. And therefore, it's not surprising that 10, 12, 11 years later, all these vociferous tendencies have come to the fore. The second thing which has happened is that the situation in Syria, over the last 3 years, it has been chaotic. And again, there has been an attempt to destabilize the Assad government there. So effectively, you have the eastern part of Syria out of the control of the Assad government, and you have the north and the northwest part of Iraq, which are bordering regions, which are outside the control. The Sunni army, which of Saddam Hussein, was disbanded, or it was so you have all these trained people who have fallen into the hands of the Islamists. And al-Maliki in Baghdad is basically running a Shia outfit, a Shia government. So these sectarian divisions have sharpened, and because of the chaos there, the Americans left precipitately in 2011 without really solving any issue. So a lot of the arms and equipment have fallen into the hands of the rebels.
Indeed, several mistakes have been done. Of course, the disbanding of the army and the pulling out of the US troops in 2011. All these factors have contributed to the situation in Iraq. What needs to be done now to ensure that there is some kind of normalcy there in that country?
I don't know. It's not easy to find solutions when a situation has deteriorated to the extent that it has. I suppose Mr. al-Maliki has to try and form a more inclusive government, which includes the Sunnis also. It should not be so much of a Shia government. I think he has to get the Kurds on his side by giving them a little more autonomy as they're wanting. See, they've already seized Kirkuk, which they've always claimed. So if there is a more united front of all those forces which are against the Islamists, then there is some hope. But it's not going to be easy at all, because the Shia army, the al-Maliki's army, the Iraqi army is obviously not very effective. They seem to have abandoned Mosul with all their weapons, kind of a planned retreat almost. So it's not going to be easy to put the spine together again. I think that the scenario for the moment looks quite dire.
It indeed does look extremely dire, also considering the fact that the militants that are taking over some of these cities, I mean, they are extremely dangerous. The Al-Qaeda has in fact distanced itself from them because they know how bad they really can be.
Yeah. And you know, the other thing is that we are going to have now other countries intervening. This Iran.
Iran has already said
already that it's a signal, because they do not want to have a hostile regime in Iraq. Al-Maliki for them was okay, but if Al-Maliki is unable to handle the situation politically or militarily, then they will, I don't know, there are reports that they may be sending in some of their militias or doing some covert activity. That, however, carries a danger that as they are trying to do a deal with the United States and the other Western powers on the nuclear deal, that it could complicate that relationship. Then there is Turkey, which is affected by both what is happening in Syria and in Iraq. And if the Kurds manage to form a more autonomous, effective government, they already have a fairly autonomous, independent government that is functioning in the north, then that creates pressures on Turkey. So you have then, the neighboring powers getting involved in Iraq. And that's not a good sign for any kind of stability there.
Obama has already indicated that there is going to be some kind of a military action. He has said that troops are not going to be sent, but there is definitely going to be some kind of military action. Let's not forget, the Americans have invested heavily in Iraq, not just money, but even manpower. And it's also a prestige issue as far as the Americans are concerned. So how do you see the Americans reacting to the situation in Iraq?
Well, when Mr. Obama withdrew the American troops in 2011, he was actually responding to a widespread public feeling in the United States that, we need to withdraw our troops. And he responded to that. But he didn't fix the problem. It was not his creation, admittedly. It was something Mr. Bush's creation. But he's had to deal with the consequences. And there is no appetite in the United States, as he said, to send troops there. In any case, these kind of interventions, shoot and scoot interventions, are not effective. So what do we see? We see that in Iraq, they've broken the country. You had the strongman, Saddam Hussein was there. He has been removed. You see in Afghanistan, after 13 years, again, the Taliban are resurgent. So what have these interventions done except broken up these countries, created more instability? I think the United States bears the responsibility, whether it is Mr. Obama or Mr. Bush. They broke it.
Yes, indeed. They did break it. And right now, Iraq is, of course, in turmoil at the moment. And now several critics, of course, have come out and said that, we warned you of such a situation 10 years ago, 11 years ago, and now it's really happening.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is not something that some of the people didn't expect to happen. Things are happening on expected lines at the moment, and trying to correct this particular problem is going to be extremely difficult at the moment, isn't it?
It is. It is going to be very difficult indeed. It's a very serious crisis, not just for Iraq, but the location of Iraq, and combine that with Syria, because the ISIL or ISIS is controlling parts of both Iraq and Syria, and that is the heart of the Middle East. So what happens there, the instability, the fundamentalism, all that will spread all over. And when you take into account that the Arab world is already in ferment for a little over 3 years now, you see what's happening in Egypt, and Saudi Arabia is also problematic, then the whole region could be blowing up.
Yes, the whole region could be blowing up. But what does this mean to the world economy as well? Because let's not forget, there are several oil fields in South Iraq, and that's controlled by the government at the moment. But everyone is eyeing that particular region, aren't they?
Of course. That's something that should be of concern to us also, because now Iraq is our second largest oil supplier. And, many countries have had to cut back on their imports from Iran and gotten new sources of oil from Iraq. So I think that the markets are a bit jittery. I think prices of oil have gone up. If there is, so far, oil supplies have not been disrupted, but who knows? And if that were to happen, then it would have a negative impact on the world economy.
It could indeed have a negative impact on the world economy. Mr. Rajiv Sikri, thank you so much for joining us on the show today, of course, and sharing your perspectives and your thoughts on this particular subject. Much appreciate you being here with us on the show.
Thank you.
Well, we'll slip into a short break right now, but on the other side, we'll tell you all about the first US drone strikes in Pakistan in almost 6 months. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha Television. Well, an American drone struck a militant compound in Pakistan's tribal belt for the second time in 12 hours. At least 18 suspected members of the Haqqani network were killed in a suddenly intense resurgence of the CIA offensive in Pakistan. Here's a report. The first US drone strikes in Pakistan in almost 6 months targeted militants from Afghanistan's Haqqani network, killing one of the insurgent group's senior commanders. Drones struck 2 locations in Pakistan's North Waziristan tribal region near the border with Afghanistan, killing at least 10 suspected militants on Wednesday. The second strike at around 2:30 am local time on Thursday hit a Haqqani network compound near Miran Shah, North Waziristan's capital, killing at least 8. Among those 8 was Haji Gul, described by Pakistani intelligence officials and local militants as a senior Haqqani field commander whose advice was regularly sought by the group's leadership. The Haqqani network is part of the Afghan Taliban but operates autonomously, mostly in eastern Afghanistan. Its main base is in North Waziristan. A vehicle rigged for use in a suicide attack was also destroyed in the attack. Pakistan officials said that the militants were preparing for a mission across the border in Afghanistan. The Haqqani network has carried out a series of high-profile attacks in Afghanistan against Western targets, including the September 13, 2011 assault on the US Embassy in Kabul. The US Department of State formally designated it a terrorist organization in 2012. Well, much else has been unfolding around the world. Here's a quick wrap of the other international news of the week. Rwandan forces and troops from the Democratic Republic of Congo are fighting each other on their shared border. The battle began when a unit of Rwandan soldiers crossed over on Wednesday. After fighting for nearly 2 hours, the Rwandans kidnapped an army corporal. Clashes resumed when the Congolese learned that the officer had been killed. The Israeli parliament has elected Reuven Rivlin as the country's next president. Rivlin, a former Speaker of Parliament, defeated his rival Meir Sheitrit in a runoff by 63 to 53 votes. He succeeds Shimon Peres, who will step down from the largely ceremonial position next month. Sri Lankan President Mahinda Rajapaksa said Parliament will decide whether to allow a UN panel in the country to probe alleged human rights abuses during the final phase of the conflict with the LTTE. Addressing a public gathering, he said Parliament is the forum for people's representatives and they will decide if the inquiry panel should be allowed into the country. Uganda's Foreign Minister Sam Kutesa was elected President of the UN General Assembly. The move comes despite concerns among rights advocates, Western governments and UN officials about his country's recently adopted anti-gay legislation. After his election by acclamation without a vote in the 193-nation General Assembly, Kutesa pledged to promote gender equality and women's rights and to continue a United Nations drive to eradicate poverty and combat climate change. Japan has lodged a diplomatic protest with Beijing after Chinese military jets flew as close as 30 meters to Japanese military aircraft over the East China Sea. Japan said 2 Chinese Su-27 fighters approached the Japanese aircraft in separate incidents in airspace claimed by both nations on Wednesday. The Japanese planes were on a regular surveillance mission in international airspace and that Japan would continue to defend its territory. The 2 countries have increased patrols by ships and military planes to press their conflicting territorial claims in the East China Sea. Well, let's now bring you up to date with what's happening in the world of show business. Here's a quick roundup of the latest from the world of entertainment.
An exhibit based on Batman film franchise is set to open in California later this month. The Batman exhibit will feature props, costumes, cars and memorabilia from Tim Burton's Batman movies and Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. The Batman tour will be launched on June 26th at Warner Brothers VIP Studio in Burbank in California to coincide with the 75th anniversary of the comic book hero's debut. Melanie Brown has signed a £1 million contract to become the final judge of this year's The X Factor. The 39-year-old singer was allegedly Simon Cowell's first choice for the final place on the panel. Based on her meeting with her, he became sure that Brown will be able to steer things and be up for a laugh, which is important. Cowell reportedly had even consulted Cheryl Cole, who was offered $1.5 million to be on the panel. Kim Kardashian and her husband Kanye West celebrated the rapper's 37th birthday during their official honeymoon getaway in Mexico. The newlyweds were continuing their post-wedding celebrations in Punta Mita when earlier this week, the 33-year-old took to her Instagram account and wished her hubby a very happy birthday. The couple, who already have a daughter, Northwest, reportedly really want to have another baby soon. The suspect held responsible for intruding Sandra Bullock's Los Angeles home had pleaded not guilty to stalking charges. Joshua Corbett was subsequently charged with felony counts of residential burglary, stalking, and possession of a machine gun, to which he pleaded not guilty during a court appearance in Los Angeles. Bullock obtained an emergency restraining order against Corbett, and the Superior Court judge had set his bail at $185,000. If convicted, Corbett could face more than 7 years behind the bars. Sir Mick Jagger has scheduled his gigs according to the World Cup schedule so that he doesn't miss a match. The 70-year-old singer is a huge football fan, and he made sure that the band is not performing at the same time of the match. Jagger also insisted that there should be a television in each hotel in the city where his band is performing. The brown sugar hitmaker is also heading out to Brazil to watch the semi-finals and the final.
Moving on, now let's bring you up to date with all the sporting action from across the globe in our quick sports wrap. FIFA President Sepp Blatter has been urged to quit next year because of the damage corruption allegations have inflicted on football's governing body. Michael van Praag, boss of the Dutch Football Association, told Blatter he should not seek re-election in 2015. FIFA has been plagued by allegations of corruption for a number of years and is currently trying to deal with claims that the bidding process for the 2018 and 2022 World Cups was flawed. Italian coach Roberto Mancini parted company with Turkish giants Galatasaray by mutual consent after one season. Mancini joined the Istanbul-based side on a 3-year deal after being dismissed by Manchester City at the end of the 2012-13 season. Mancini led Galatasaray to a second-place league finish and Turkish Cup victory last season. They also progressed to the Champions League round of 16. Aged 49, Mancini has also coached Fiorentina, Lazio and Inter Milan, and he won 36 caps playing for Italy. Audi's Le Mans winner Loic Duval emerged unscathed from a huge high-speed crash that halted qualifying for the 24-hour sports car race. Duval was extracted from the mangled wreckage and taken to hospital in Le Mans. The Frenchman was a first-time winner last year. He shares his car with the Denmark's 9-time champion Tom Christensen and Brazilian Lucas Di Grassi. Audi Sport tweeted that the driver whose car was destroyed in the impact after leaving the track at the Porsche curves was unhurt apart from 2 grazes to the skin. The World Chess Championship match between defending champion Magnus Carlsen and his challenger Viswanathan Anand will be played in Russia's Sochi city. For the first time, Sochi will host the World Chess Championship match from 7th November to 28th November of this year on the territory of the Olympic Village. The budget of the match is $3 million. The city had hosted the Winter Olympics earlier this year. Indian pistol shooter Jeetu Rai's hard work bore fruit on Wednesday when he clinched the silver medal in the men's 10-meter air pistol event at the ISSF World Cup in Munich. The 27-year-old shooter from Lucknow shot an impressive 199.4 in the finals after aggregating 583 in the qualification stage. Another Indian shooter, Prakash Nanjappa, finished 7th after scoring 97.1 in the finals to go with his 584 in the qualification. Spain's Pablo Pereira won the gold after shooting 201.3, while Pavlo Korytsilov of Ukraine bagged the bronze. Well, a glittering opening ceremony set the tone for Brazil as it kicked off its home World Cup with a football-style carnival. Thousands of fans put construction delays and protests behind them to celebrate along with Jennifer Lopez, rapper Pitbull and pop star Claudio Lieti to sing the World Cup theme, We Are One.
The 2014 FIFA World Cup got underway with a colourful opening ceremony. Many fans took to the streets to chant their support for Brazil as the excitement peaked. The 25-minute opening ceremony was an act in 4 parts. On the Arena de Sao Paulo pitch, 660 dancers put on with a show around a living ball. On a carpet that covered the pitch with 4 massive drums in 4 corners, acrobatic gymnasts, trampolinists, martial art performers and stilt walkers featured in homage to Brazil's 3 great treasures: nature, people and football. Performers dressed as trees, flowers and various musical instruments. There were men and women kicking balls tied on a string, shifting it from one foot to another. Jennifer Lopez and rapper Pitbull brought up a finale performing the official World Cup song, We Are One. The center of the show was a giant LED ball made up of more than 90,000 light clusters, one of few large technical wonders in the event. Symbolic doves of peace flew wide off the military helicopters as Brazil's World Cup officially opened. 3 doves were released by children at a lavish opening ceremony at Corinthians Arena in Sao Paulo. The doves flew even as protests raged elsewhere in Brazil's largest city to make it a World Cup of contrasts and controversies.
Well, the animal oracle predictions for the World Cup have begun, with host nation Brazil getting a vote of confidence from its chosen turtle tipster. By making a patriotic choice of food, loggerhead turtle Big Head predicted on Wednesday that the host nation will beat Croatia in the opening game of the World Cup. Big Head is Brazil's answer to Germany's Paul the Octopus, who started the psychic animal craze during the 2010 World Cup and spawned a slew of imitations around the world. I'm going to leave you with these visuals of Big Head the turtle making his choice. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again same time, same place next week. Bye-bye.